Alright, welcome back to the channel, everyone. So today I'm going to be breaking down who I think should be next for each fighter on the main card of UFC 319. But before I get into that, the MMA Civil War burns hot, man. I don't think I've ever seen the community this divided before, especially after a championship fight. Now, I've seen both sides of the coin, and now that the dust is kind of settling, you know, there are good points on either side, right? And I've touched on this in my previous video, but I'm just going to give my final take on the situation. Now, what Chimaev did, without a doubt, was very, very, very impressive. For him to do that to a dominant champion in dricus and take little to no damage was very, very impressive. The amount of skill, cardio especially, so there's no cardio issues anymore. Very, very, very impressive. Right? And that's the thing. You can't resent Chimaev for taking the easy route because that's the name of the game. For fighting, you want to take the path of least resistance. However, if you're a hardcore, I don't think boring is the right word. I think the right word is frustrating because I've seen worse. I think we've all seen worse, more boring fights. Right? For a hardcore, the word is frustrating. Because, especially with a championship fight, you want a bit of back and forth. You don't ever want to see something this one-sided, right? And that's the thing. A lot of these hipsters and contrarians are like, oh, you sound like grappling. Go watch kickboxing. This is MMA, not striking. It's like, okay, you know, that's fine. But striking is also part of MMA. And there was literally next to nothing. It was just basically an entire wrestling match. Aside from the last few minutes, it was just a wrestling match. But, you know, maybe a few seconds each round and then boom, right? It was a wrestling match. So it wasn't really MMA. It was majority wrestling, right? You got to admit that. Not only that, dricus had nothing on top or on bottom, right? He had nothing for Chimaev. He could not reverse any position. He kind of, you know, caught a little wind at the end of round 5, like I said, but really nothing when it came to on his back. He was just there, right? He couldn't do anything. Stuck in the crucifix. And that's the thing. The criticism of Chimaev is that, you know, there's such a high expectation of Chimaev that it's a blessing and a curse. It's very complimentary. At the same time, though, it's annoying because you always have to live up to it, right? And as a fighter, you're allowed to have a bad performance. It's not like kick or soccer or baseball or something where it's like, I played like shit. I'll do better tomorrow. You know what I mean? So it's a lot worse because, you know, that's all you have to show for yourself for another, you know, 6 or 4 months or whatever when you ever get back in the cage. However, for Chimaev, you know, he should have went for a lot more submissions. He should have postured up and did more ground and pound. That's a fair criticism. Anyone saying otherwise, like, relax. You know what I mean? It's fair. Not everyone wants to just see 25 minutes of top control. You know what I mean? So, no, people aren't resenting wrestling and hating wrestling. It's just, we want a little back and forth. And I think a lot of people are just disappointed in DDP and expected a lot more out of him, and rightfully so. However, for casuals, I see people going ballistic on people saying this was boring. Like I said, if you're hardcore, frustrating. If you're casual, you're allowed to say this was boring. You're allowed to. Think about it. If you have a friend who's never watched UFC, and before, hindsight's 2020, right? But if you're hyped about this fight, you're telling them it's like, oh my God, this is they're both undefeated in the UFC. Chimaev's purely undefeated. You know, these guys are nothing but dominant, and it's just going to be the most hyped fight in the entire 2025. And then they go watch, and they're like, I'm kind of bored, man. They have that right. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't know all the grappling sequences, you don't know all the ins and outs, you don't know what it means for Chimaev to be able to do all this, you don't know the backstory, watching just another man out-grapple and kind of lay on top of him and just posture up occasionally and do these little pot shots. And yes, you know what? It is fair to say part of the fight, Chimaev was stalling. He was not going for submissions, and he was not posturing up and going ground and pound. It was not a very exciting fight. That's a fair assessment. That's fair. Right? So all these people getting like ripped apart in the comment section because they weren't entertained by it, it's stupid. It's stupid. You know what I'm saying? It was not, like, there's not a lot of replay value in this fight, aside from tape study. You know what I'm saying? Make me a highlight video of this fucking fight. It won't be over 30 seconds. You know what I'm saying? So for people to resent the casuals for not being excited by this is just brain dead to me, because it's just like, okay, you know all the wrestling and okay, you appreciate it. That's fine. You're allowed to appreciate wrestling. But compare this to like a Merab Umar, where there was back and forth. Both were going for takedowns. Both were getting up. Both were going for submissions. Whereas this is just one-sided. Was not the most exciting. There was literally next to nothing for Dricus as far as output goes. And yeah, this isn't a fight that's going to generate the masses and generate a huge following. This isn't that fight. So that being said, you can't resent Chimaev for it, because as much as it's like, oh, go for submissions. Yes, he probably should have went for more submissions and postured up and go for more ground and pound. However, he took the path of least resistance. If you're going to be mad at someone, be mad at Dricus for being criminally underprepared for this wrestling. You know what I'm saying? That it is what it is. Hardcore, frustrating. Casual, you're allowed to be bored. It's fine. You don't have to be all mad at them. It's fine. They're allowed to not enjoy this fight. Relax. That being said, let's get into this. Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. We'll start with Chimaev. Now, rumor on the street, and especially literally in his post-fight press conference, he says, I want to fight in Abu Dhabi. Now, if he's going to fight in Abu Dhabi, there are two options available, right? Realistic options. There are Reinier de Ridder and Anthony Hernandez. Now, both are very valid options in the sense of not merit, just timing. You could say that, oh, Reinier de Ridder's win over Whitaker deserves immediate title shot, but there is debate on that, right? Whitaker has not been doing great in the sense of elite competition. So, you know what I'm saying? As far as Anthony Hernandez, amazing performance, nothing but domination, but at the same time, it was Roman Dolidze. Roman Dolidze is not a world beater. So, as far as merit goes between these two, I'd have to give it to de Ridder. You beat Whitaker. A win over Whitaker is a lot better than a win over Dolidze. But that being said, Anthony Hernandez would be a decent choice too. Who would I rather see fight? I don't know. It's just because Reinier de Ridder, he's so awkward, but he's tall. So I feel like he's going to have a taller sense of, or a higher base of gravity or whatever. So he might be easily taken down. And that's the thing. Anthony Hernandez, I feel like this might be his, where he becomes infamous. Because Anthony Hernandez, he is kind of flying on the radar because he's not the most explosive personality and he doesn't have like these knockout, like crazy finishes. So he kind of gets brushed under the rug. So if, let's say, for example, Chimaev can fight in October, I can definitely see Reinier de Ridder fighting Anthony Hernandez for the next #1 contender. But out of these two, if I had to choose who would I like to see fight in Abu Dhabi, I want to say Anthony Hernandez, but Reinier de Ridder has the more credible win. So it is what it is. I guess it's up to the UFC. Now, as far as, let's say this fight doesn't happen and Chimaev, for whatever reason, is like, you know what, no, we can't fit you in Abu Dhabi. You're a champion now. You can't just go turn around short notice. It's not possible. Fine. Then obviously the winner of Imavov versus Borhallo is the right answer, right? So that being said, you know, if Chimaev wants to return either in October, de Ridder or Hernandez, and if he wants to wait or if he can't fight then it's the winner of Imavov Borhallo. Now, as far as Dricus is concerned, Dricus, even his coach, I was watching his coach's interview last night, and, you know, it was nice to see his coach was like, no, we do not want a rematch right now. No way. And, you know, to have that level of humility and understanding, whereas opposed to you see a lot of these yes men around. I hate that whole yes men thing. Like, especially, you see that a lot in, like, O'Malley's camp. You know, you see that a lot in, who's the other recent one? It's off the top of my head, but yeah. Dricus, he does want to see the belt again. That's without a doubt. You know, he's made it very clear that he wants to become the greatest of all time. One loss, it is what it is. Most people cannot go in MMA and remain undefeated. So, and he was not undefeated before this, so it is what it is. However, I said in my video talking about it the other day, Dricus, we get you can handle the strikers. We need him to come back to a grapple-heavy style, or at least someone who offensively grapples. So, for my opinion, I think Dricus should fight the loser of imavov borhallo. Obviously, he could do the loser of Hernandez de Ritter, but you don't know what direction they're going to go with those two, so it is what it is. Where it's very safe to assume that they're going to go Nasruddin Imavov versus Kyle Borhallo. Loser of that. Both of them know how to grapple, and both of them can strike, so it'll be a very good dynamic fight for Dricus to get back in there, prove all the doubters wrong and everything, and just get people back on his side. Because, yeah, we need to see him against another grappler, similar to how they did Leon Edwards, right? Where Leon lost to Bilal, and then it's just like, okay, you want the title again? Here's Sean Brady. Here's another grappler. You prove you can get through him, maybe we'll consider giving you a rematch. But, yeah, I think that's the same scenario with Dricus. And, yeah, good luck to him. I said this in one of my comment sections. I was like, I think Dricus is going to be one of those guys where, similar to Volk, where people resent him in his come up, but then once he loses, people will finally be like, oh, now we kind of like him. You know, you don't know what you don't have. And whether Chimaev lives up to his activity promises and all that, I guess we'll see. You know, I'll believe it when I see it. Now, as far as that goes, okay, Larone Murphy versus Aaron Pico. Larone Murphy, amazing performance. And I think, obviously, the writing's on the wall. He's going to get the Volk title shot in December. Now, that may not be the case because Gene Silva versus Diego Lopez is in, I believe, September, right? And if Diego Lopez wins, then obviously Larone Murphy's going to get the title shot, right? However, if Gene Silva goes in there and knocks out number 2 ranked in the world, Diego Lopez, that's worth way more than an unranked Aaron Pico who's been knocked out multiple times before. So if Gene Silva goes in there and knocks out Lopez, he gets a title shot without any question because he's much more of a, I don't know if he's more known, but like, he has much more star power and much more potential when it comes to like selling pay-per-views and all that. So I think the UFC, if they had to choose purely on business, I think they would have to choose Gene Silva. But it depends. I don't think Larone Murphy should have to fight again necessarily. If he does, and he has this badass mentality, which is like, fuck it, if they're going to give Gene Silva the title shot, get me in there again and give me Movsar. How can you not respect Larone Murphy? So, yeah. It all depends. There's just a few moving pictures or parts of the picture. Now, Aaron Pico, unranked, brutally KO'd. Now, he is American and he is a wrestler, so you know the UFC might see more potential in him than we do. And all the people are screaming fraud check. Larone Murphy is not bad, so you can't say fraud check. You know what I mean? It's just not what people thought he was, Aaron Pico. Now. If he goes outside of the rankings and he has to fight someone, then it is what it is. Now, if the UFC, because I think Kai Sakura, he fought Pantoja for the title shot, and then he was ranked 15 after that because he lost. So let's assume that they're putting Aaron Pico in the rankings at 15, for example, right? Now, this is probably going to be 6 months away. So it's kind of hard to tell. Like I said, there's a lot of moving parts. So things can shuffle around. However, I think for Aaron Pico to return, you could give him a Dan Ige at number 14. You could give him a Giga Chikadze at number 15. Maybe even a Onama, like depending on what's what. I think Steve Garcia did so well. I don't think he's going to want to fight down, so I don't think that's a chance. But yeah, 13, 14, 15. Onama, Ige, and Chikadze. Either one of those guys. I think realistically, they might go with Dan Ige is explosive. He has power, so I don't know if they want to give him that. Like, Ngiga has really good kicks, but he has a hole in his wrestling. So I think they might go with Giga Chikadze to get Aaron Pico a decent style matchup, because that's the thing. Aaron Pico is able to be finished, so Giga Chikadze can definitely win this. And I think Giga's probably like, oh my god, like this guy has so much hype. Even though he got knocked out, he still has a bit of name value. And he has a questionable chin, so I think I can get this done. And then Aaron Pico's like, you know what? Top 15, I'm going to do it. I just want to bring myself back into the rankings. And yeah, it's kind of shit or get off the pot, right? Because at the UFC, it is very cutthroat. So if Aaron Pico loses another one, then, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, see ya. You know, it sucks to say, but This isn't some Disney World like, if you lose twice, especially with this high of expectations, it's questionable for where you go in your career. Now, Jeff Neal versus Carlos Prates. Wow. Dark Knight rises. I love Prates. Love his call-out. To me, Prates is probably my favorite welterweight right now. Like, personality, fighting, just everything, And like I said, I was fired up and being like, oh, all you idiots, counting out Prates after the Ian Gary. Ian Gary he's not the most dangerous, but fucking hell, he's good. He's very, very, very talented, and he knows how to win. Maybe not by finish or devastating fashion, but he knows how to win. However, Prates, back in the win column, and loved his call-up. Leon Edwards, love it. And like I said in my other video, Leon's a complete pussy if he doesn't accept this, because Leon Edwards, right? Let's take a look. Leon's ranked number 4, and Prates is ranked number 12, beat Jeff Neal at 11. So let's say, Gilbert's at 10, so let's put up Prates above Neal and Gilbert. And Colby. What the fuck has Colby done? Fuck off. Let's put Carlos Prates right underneath Buckley. So yeah, we'll even though Jeff Neal's number 11, I think Prates, they value him so much. Yeah, we'll put Prates above Colby at number 9, let's say, right? Colby Covington shouldn't be fucking ranked, but what do I know? Anyways, besides the point. Calls out Leon Edwards. So that would be 9 versus 4. Leon Edwards lost to Bilal very easily and then destroyed by Sean Brady. So Leon Edwards shouldn't even be in the top 5. Like, if you get destroyed twice, you shouldn't be in the top 5. I don't care who you've lost to. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just question the movement of the rankings. But yeah, Leon Edwards versus Carlos Prates. Love that matchup. Leon Edwards, he'd be more than happy to accept a striking-only fight. And Leon, I don't know if it's entitlement or thinking he's bigger than he is, but he's farthest thing from a star. So he has no choice, because I think they wanted to do Michael Morales, versus Leon Edwards. But I heard that apparently they might be going with Shavkat versus Michael Morales. Holy fuck, if that's true. That's an amazing fight. So yeah, hopefully they do that, and then Prates gets a crack at Leon. And we'll go from there. Now, Jeff Neal, same thing with Aaron Pico. It's going to be a while. There's going to be a lot of moving parts, so he might be out for a bit. Now, I'm pretty sure on Gilbert's podcast, he was like, yeah, I'd fight Daniel Rodriguez. So if they do that, then D-Rod's out of the picture. And, obviously Jeff Neal's not going to fight up in Gilbert after a KO loss, right? So what I was thinking is they might be able to do a Gabriel Bonfim versus Jeff Neal. Or MVP's out. Like, what the fuck? MVP is just... You see him ranked everywhere, and just like, I don't know, man. And that's being said, I don't think MVP would even be excited enough to take that Jeff Neal fight, because it's just like, he's going to go down a few spots and coming off a knockout loss. So what does that really do for me in my career? So I don't think MVP will want that one. So yeah, I think Gabriel Bonfim versus Jeff Neal, whenever they're ready. And moving on, Jared Cannonier versus MVP. MVP. All right. MVP... bitching about the politics in 185 or 170. So I don't think he was going to go fight in 170 next. If he does, he's ranked number 15. But you know what? No, scratch that. Let's assume that he's staying in 185, because I'm not going to do 17 divisions for one guy, right? So MVP beat Cannonier. Cannonier is at 9. So let's assume that MVP is going to take Cannonier's spot. Now, MVP was interviewed, I think it was the Full Send guy, saying like, okay, what are these two names? What do you think when you hear them? Robert Whittaker and Reinier de Ridder. And he's like, oh, I like both of them. They both excite me. Especially, I just want fun fights. And I think on Robert Whittaker's podcast I was listening to, he was saying it's like, yeah, I'd like to get back in there by like December, maybe, And I think MVP would be willing to fight Robert Whittaker because, and that's the thing, Robert Whittaker, it would be a very risky fight. And Robert Whittaker, as much as he does say he has grappling and all that, you know what I mean? It's not the best, and he's very undersized for that weight class. So, but that being said, MVP was able to just be controlled for a whole round against, or not a whole round, but Jared Cannonier got on top of him. He wasn't able to go anywhere. And I think there's probably a strength difference between Robert Whittaker and Cannonier, but yeah, Whittaker's been losing. MVP wants a name. Whittaker is a name still, even though his recent success. So it is what it is. I think, yeah, you can do MVP versus Robert Whittaker. Because, yeah, I think they're going to try to do Renier de Ridder versus maybe Hernandez. All right. Now, Jared Cannonier. As far as Jared Cannonier goes, they are fucking ruthless with his booking, man. So I'm thinking, like, if they want to get Jared Cannonier back on track, in a sense, they could do Cannonier versus Roman Dolidze. They could do, because that's a winnable fight for both. Even though Jared Cannonier, some people are saying he's washed. He definitely does not take the shots the same way. And Roman Dolidze, he's kind of hit or miss. So it would be a decent fight, but I don't think the UFC sees Cannonier as that. I think the UFC sees Cannonier as a stepping stone. And I could see them really booking him against like a Kopylov, like a Cannonier versus Kopylov, maybe get Kopylov back on track. Or, I don't know, I think they might want to jump Costa up a bit and get him a more entertaining, like as far as like a dance partner, personality-wise, I think they want Costa in the spotlight a bit more. So, I don't know, they might do a Costa versus Cannonier, just for Costa to just run through him and get even more momentum, and then get Costa up to the, top 10. They could do that. Vettori just lost as well, so I don't think they're going to do a Vettori Cannonier rematch. So yeah, I think depending on where they see Cannonier, they could do a Paulo Costa and get Paulo Costa just, another fight, more momentum, more cage time, because I think Paulo Costa at this point would easily beat Cannonier. And yeah, they could also do a Roman Kopylov or Jared Cannonier if they see a lot of potential in Roman Kopylov. It is what it is. And yeah. Now, as far as Kaya Sakura and Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott, he's prehistoric for the division. Like, let's be real. So, as far as the rankings go, like, let's see here. So, he's ranked number... So, Kai's ranked number 15. Tim Elliott's ranked number 11. I don't even know what they do with Tim Elliott, man, because apparently he's really inactive. So, Steve Erceg's ahead of him. Erceg just won, but it was close. You could do that. Because Steve Erceg needs to do a lot more to get back to the title picture. So you could do that. I don't know. Like, it's just... I'm sorry. It's just Tim Elliott. He's so old for that division. I'm just not really interested in his future, if I'm being honest. It is what it is. I think the UFC... Or Dana White even expressed he has interest in re-signing Tim Elliott. But, I don't know, man. As far as Kaya Sakura goes, I said this in my other video. You look at his legs. It's just very skinny. And he did fight at 135 in Ryzen. I think he should go back at 135 in Ryzen. I think Kaya Sakura is a step ahead in the bad way, similar to Aaron Pico, right? Where it's just like, we gave you the title shot as what it is. We gave you Tim Elliott kind of as a bounce back, and you shit the bed. So I think Kaya Sakura definitely should go up a weight class, and I think he should go up to 135. And I think the UFC, especially since he's a former champion of that other promotion, I think they're going to want to try to get as much as they can out of him. And like I said, the UFC is fairly ruthless. So what they could do is they could bump him up to a top 15 spot in the 135. And that's the thing. This is wishful thinking. Like, they could go unranked and give him to like Peyton Talbot or something like that, or the Wellmaker guy. But if they want to keep him in the top 15, they could give Kaya Sakura a Marcus McGee. Hopefully, like, it has to be a striking only fight, because I don't want to, like, obviously Kaya Sakura will never be champion. You cannot be a champion without wrestling. It's just not possible. So yeah, a striker in 135. Like I said, maybe a Marcus McGee. That's the thing. I would say Rob Font, but Rob Font's higher up in the rankings, so that's not possible. But yeah, it really just depends on where they see Kaya Sakura. But yeah, I just don't think he should be fighting at 125. I think the weight cut's too big. And yeah, striking only, give him 135. And yeah. That being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe, and see you on the next one. Peace.